That's right. It's the Triple M Footy News Update with Tommy Browne. My name's Rudy Etzel. I've got Tommy here in the studio, and there's a lot to get through, Tommy. How are you?
Good, Rudy. It's great to be in the studio this morning. I'll start with a couple of stories. Talk this week of a pre-grand final bye to protect players against missing the grand final from concussion. I think Gil McLachlan very much committed to the pre-finals bye, not the pre-grand final bye. And these thought bubbles sort of bob up in quiet news weeks. That won't be happening, is my information this morning, a pre-grand final bye. So if you get concussed in the prelim, that's stiff, basically. And that's been the case for a long time. Having said that, I know players would often get themselves up, but we're a bit past that point these days because we know how dangerous the CTE and concussion issues are.
Yeah, it was brought up by Chelsea Randall missing the AFLW grand final, and it's bad luck for her, but that's how it is.
I feel bad for Chelsea, but the risk of injury has always been there before a grand final. It's nothing new.
That's right. The Ben Cunningham decision has been the big story of the first part of the week. He got a week for bumping Rory Laird, high-ish, I suppose, that was taken to the tribunal by North Melbourne. They got it down to a $2,000 fine rather than a week off. And you have some mail on the AFL's thoughts on that decision?
Yeah, the AFL won't appeal that. Obviously, it's not the AFL's position because they rewrote the rules where the contact can be medium even if the player isn't injured because of the potential to cause injury. But the AFL won't appeal the Cunnington decision, which just shows again that the bump isn't dead if it's applied in the Cunnington way and you ride your chances on not injuring the opposition player.
Indeed. Jared Harbrow was one that wasn't looked at, and you will sort of see if you can get the word from the AFL on that in the future, I think.
Yeah, it does. I'll follow it up on Friday. It doesn't make a lot of sense that because Gibbons did require assessment. Now, he wasn't concussed, but the injury was worse compared to the Cunnington situation. So I will follow that up, Rudy.
Kade Simpson, I believe you've got an update on that for me.
Yeah,
Tom.
so he spoke on Monday, Simpson, flagging that he would like to nominate himself for the mid-year or the mid-season draft or trade period. He wants to make a return, essentially. My information is that when he retired last year, he didn't want to retire. Now, that's obviously a common phenomenon, particularly in 36 and 37-year-old players. And I think he actually mentioned that to his Carlton teammates in his farewell speech, which they recorded for the Blues website. I think that bit might have been edited out, was suggested to me. It wouldn't be the first. We edit things all the time, really. It wouldn't be the first club to edit something like that out.
No, well, it's their prerogative, and fair enough. And also fair enough if Kade Simpson wants to go around again. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Speaking of Carlton, Clayton Oliver sort of rebuffed interest from them in signing a 2-year deal with the D's yesterday, Tommy.
Yeah, a couple of contract ones. So obviously a lot of interest in Clayton Oliver. He signed to the start of his free agency, which makes a lot of sense, following that trend like guys like Jordan De Goey in doing that. He's obviously very happy, Clayton Oliver, at Melbourne at the moment. So it's obviously a good decision there, flying on the field, and that was, I think, a good decision for him. There would have been lots of interest from other clubs, but that's the situation there. The other one I've been mentioning, Zach Merritt, obviously one of the most high-profile free agents out at the end of the season. I think Merritt will talk publicly next week. I think all he'll say is that he's happy at the Bombers and doesn't want to make a rush decision yet, just wants to take into account all the information like the total player payments, which haven't been negotiated for next year. There's also this chance that Essendon will have a huge pot of cash to pay Zach a healthy premium to stay. So I think either way, Zach's going to have a good outcome. Plus, if he was to go to Collingwood, Collingwood's not travelling that flash at the moment on the field, and I wonder whether that would have a bearing on whether he would leave.
Yeah, that's a good point. There was also some flagged interest. I think Jack Nile wrote an article in The Age about
Port Adelaide.
Possibly Port Adelaide's interest. They are flying on the field.
Correct. You got to live in Adelaide, though. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, hey, Adelaide's a lovely place. All our fans in Adelaide. So hello to you.
Some of the Crows fans. I do like Adelaide. I go there regularly. Love it, Rudy. Just for the record.
No, I've never had a bad time in Adelaide. Always had a good time out there. Paddy Ryder is back at St Kilda training, but
won't be ready as my mail for tomorrow night. St Kilda again with a short break, so he hasn't got enough training under his belt. Marshall, who had a fractured foot, returned, was so important for St Kilda, then broke what was left of his plantar fascia and actually gave away a 50 because he was in pain during the second quarter. He's also in doubt for tomorrow night, so I think they might be conservative. Brett Ratton speaking later this morning.
Yeah, that will be. It's a tough one for St Kilda because there's almost no more important player to them in some ways than Marshall. Marshall and Ryder are such a potent duo, and then to have to play Richmond with neither of them is it's a tough blow for the Saints.
Absolutely.
Really. Yeah. Speaking of big men with injuries, you've got an update. Oscar McDonald, you sort of flagged this the other day that you'd heard some
12 weeks with stress fractures in his lower back, or bone stress issues in his lower back, I should more accurately say, listed as indefinite on the Carlton website. Jack Silvani, they'll assess his need for surgery again today. I think he's seen Greg Hoy, the surgeon. He's had the 2 shoulder injuries in 4 or 5 weeks, same shoulder, and it's the same shoulder that's full of pins and screws from a previous shoulder surgery. So he's got a decision to make on whether he wants to have surgery. I think 12 months ago he would have liked to have put it off because he wanted to play and prove himself. I think he's proven himself recently, so hopefully maybe he'll opt to get that fixed, but I'm not a doctor. Just on the Carlton injury list, Curnow, De Koning, Fisher, Marchbank, Martin, McDonald, Newman, Silvani and Williams. They're not all soft tissue injuries, a lot of impact injuries and all the rest of it, some bad luck in there as well. But they do have one of the most high-profile fitness bosses in the competition, Andrew Russell, who's regarded as a gun at his job. He made a name for himself at Hawthorn. He's very, very good at what he does. But he does, I think, get paid more than the coach, and that is a big injury list. So no doubt that would be he'd be stressed over that at the moment. He'd be desperately trying to fix it because he's very good at what he does.
Just a word for Caleb Marchbank before we move on. That's awful for him. I feel so bad for him.
So he had like a neck issue back in 2019. Then he had knee issues. Then he had ankle issues, and they kept reoccurring. And then he was coming back through the VFL on the weekend after re-injuring or sort of re-aggravating his calf recently, and he's done his ACL. Absolutely luckless. And people that I know closely reckon he's one of the nicest young blokes you'll meet as well. So I hate stories like that. They're like Paddy McCartan. So he's guys that just, their careers get ruined by injury and they just can't get out in the park, and it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, hopefully his career's not ruined. He's only 24 years of age. So by the time he comes back onto the field, hopefully 25, and he's still got a career ahead of him. We hope so. Yeah, fingers crossed for Marchbank there. Before we finish up for today, Tommy, you've got an update on Collingwood.
Yeah, they're under pressure. Bucks is under pressure going into this Friday night. Just off field, I think Mark Anderson, their CEO, I've been told, sort of increasingly concerned with the situation, which is normal. That's his job, I guess. He's a good operator. I'm told from a footy perspective, the board is functioning. They're thinking about football issues. I've reported, I think they're split at the moment on the issue of who the successor to Eddie Maguire should be, whether it be Mark Corder or Peter Murphy. I think they're still thrashing that out. I think they want to fill the casual director vacancy at the same time as finding a new president. But I have heard the board starting to formulate thinking about what life would look post Nathan Buckley, if that's what they end up doing. There's no guarantees that Bucks is not going to get his contract renewed, but I do think there's some vigour in terms of their thinking now about what would happen if Bucks wasn't coached. So it just proves that, I think from a football perspective, the board is functioning pretty well, and they're thinking about all those scenarios. Hopefully, for Bucks' sake, he can knock them into shape against West Coast this Friday night, because I like Bucks.
They have got history of a big surprise against the Eagles in West Coast.
Who are missing Yeo, Shuey, and Hearn. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. Definitely those 3 guys. I know Mark Hutchings is back, but the other 3 will still be out. I believe Shuey's a long-term out. Obviously.
I'd like to see Brody Grundy get 22 touches, 20 hit-outs, and just dominate. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean it'd be fun. He and Nick Natanui always a good exciting matchup, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's pretty hard to run yourself into form against Nick.
That's right. He's pretty bloody good. I think that will do us for today, Tommy. We've got St Kilda Richmond tomorrow night. So on Friday morning, when you're back in, we'll have some footy, some games to talk about, and that'll be good. I'm looking forward to that.
Just on that, when Bucks the other week in the press conference in front of me said, ruckman aren't important. I should have said, well, I know you value Grundy's work around the ground, but if ruckman aren't that important, why are you paying 8.5% of your salary cap or $1 million a year to one player in Brody Grundy?
Well, I mean,
how do you would have prickled at that question?
It's a lot easier to come up with a comeback like that in the studio
2.5
with me
weeks
than
later.
it is right in front of Nathan Buckley, isn't it, mate?
On Friday Night Footy, there's 1 million viewers.
Indeed. But yeah, anyway, we'll see you again Friday morning for another instalment of the news update. Thanks for coming in, Tommy.
Thanks, Rudy.
See you next time.